Sairam everyone. What a joyful, joyous evening. What a cool, pleasant evening in this hot summer. Welcome, Dr. Sundar Iyer. We are all so excited, so happy, almost blissful just to even know that you are here in Rochester. I just want to introduce to you our family here. You've been to Buffalo Sci Center. So Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, the three area Sci Centers. We always celebrate most of our big functions together. We are a well-knit family here. And I was thinking today, Swami has blessed us with such, so many students of Swami, messengers of Swami visiting us, especially in the last few years. And I was thinking, what is the reason? Why is Swami blessing us? I think it's the unity amongst all of us. Every time Swami, whenever we go as a group, he always stresses on this unity. We function beautifully as a family, and I think this is Swami's way of blessing us. And so this is our three Sai centers together, and we are so excited with such a short notice. You accepted to be amongst us and enlighten us with the wisdom you have gathered from our beloved Bhagwan. And I'm given the task of introducing Dr. Sundar Iyer. I don't think anybody needs any introduction about him. So without delaying very much, I'll hand over the stage to Dr. Sundar Iyer. Thank you so much.
Let's worship the feet of our beloved Guru. Manas bhajare Guru charanam Dustar bhava sagar taranam Guru Maharaj Guru Jai Jai Sainath Sadguru Jai Jai Sainath Sadguru Jai Jai Manas bhajare Guru Charanam Dustara bhava sagar taranam. Shout out to all of you. I want to thank Brother Vijay for extending this invitation and allowing me to be once again an instrument of Bhagwan to share whatever little I learned at his feet. I make it a point never to refuse an invitation because it's not he who's calling me or me, but somebody else who is orchestrating it. Over the years and over the decades, I've understood this. And so, unless there is some extreme circumstances or I've committed to something else, there is really no reason why I would deny. And it so happened that this evening was free. Not entirely free, but I really didn't have anything much to do there except be a witness for the program that was held at the Devi Temple in Rochester, where I've been spending the last week with the children, teaching them yoga. So it looks like Baba said, you have some free time, I'm not going to let you be free. So it's always perfectly orchestrated. And so it is Friday evening, so hopefully you all also had the time to take off work and come and be part of this satsang. Before I begin, I want to humbly explain my attire. I wasn't ready for a Sai event, so I didn't bring a white pant and white shirt. So bear with me if I look a little too casual for an occasion like this. I know everything that we do in Baba's presence has to be followed meticulously. So I beg your pardon for not being prepared. I think Maya said, next time you go, you be prepared. You never know when, where, and how. The call will come, so I should carry a white pant and white shirt with me anytime I go anywhere, I guess. Well, I always have a problem beginning to speak about Swami because I don't know where to start. And once I start, I don't know when to end and when to stop. But I promise you, I will make sure you're back in time for dinner. The learnings over 15 years has been of my stay with Baba and in the ashram had been so profound that the lessons I relive the lessons again and again. Not only just because I talk about them, but every day of my life. All these lessons continue to guide me every moment, every day, and every aspect of my life. And ever since Swami's physical separation, as we understand, the physical body is not available anymore, but Baba is even more available to us. Ever since his samadhi, he is even more intertwined in my life, and I'm sure all of you experience that. But there is no more, even at our own unconscious and subconscious level, we don't think that he's in Puttaparthi or he's in Vrindavan anymore. He is everywhere. And we are the first generation of Sai devotees to experience both the physical and the divine proximity of a Sadguru such as Baba. I was very young when I went to Puttaparthi. I didn't know much about Swami, extremely little. I was raised in a very orthodox family of South Indian Brahmins, and my last name is Iyer, so right in the name there was a heart stamp. My grandfather wanted everybody to know he's from the Iyer family. And in Bombay you don't get along much with an Iyer stamp to your name. Being brought up in a very traditional South Indian Orthodox Brahmin family, we were raised very, very spiritually, very strict in very strict traditional sense. But there were no rooms for miracle men and people who didn't look religious. If you look at Swami's beautiful face and the attire and his afro hairstyle, I think no other holy man would dare adopt a look like Sai Baba. Not now, not in the future. But that was not a trend in those days, if you will. But like everything Swami did, and like in every facet of his life, I use him as a role model. So, these days in management lingo and in business lingo, we talk of branding, USP, unique selling point. And Baba came out on his own and chose this form. You see, none of his people in this family has this afro hairstyle. His brothers had curly hairs, but they never grew beyond half an inch. They would fall out like this. It would never stand out like the way he did. And it was a natural thing for Swami, and he allowed that to grow. Right? And so, when somebody from a South Indian Brahmin family would take a look at him, and somebody would introduce him as a guru, the first reaction would be, no, he's not a guru. We are used to the gurus who are skin, puny looking, famished looking, beard. They are the gurus, and they are, of course, they are fantastic, fabulous gurus. We followed the Kanchi Kamakoti Shankaracharya for many years. For decades, our family lineages have followed the Kanchipuram. So we have great regard and respect for all of them. In fact, I saw the older Kanchipuram Shankaracharya last year before he just passed away. And the Japmala that I'm wearing, he suddenly saw me, he laughed at me and threw the Japmala, though he was sitting in the wheelchair, apparently in a sleepy state. But when I walked in, he somehow recognized, maybe it was the service my parents did for him, and my father's sister, they all served there literally. So we have all very great regards for these gurus of our family. But when Swami came into our family by word of mouth, I think in my 5th grade or so, when there was a lady, I remember this vaguely, but my parents would tell me later, one lady from South Africa came, because in our family we were very close to a singer in Madras. Many of you, if you're from the south, you will know this name, Pittukuli Murugadas. He was a fabulous singer. He just recently passed away. And we literally grew up, as a child, I grew up in his lap. Every time he would come to Bombay, he would stay at our place, and he would stay in another house in Chembur. And so, I mean, I was the one, he's the one who carried me to the Murugan temple in Pioneer to get my head shaved, and all those rituals and everything. So we were very close to him. So when he came, he was traveling, and he had gone to South Africa to do a bhajan session. He was a traveling musician, and his path was Bhakti Yoga. He introduced people into Bhakti Yoga, and is singing amazingly, you know, inspired my mother and everybody. So they all learned singing from him. And so when he came back, he brought a lady who was coming with him on her way to see Swami. So when she came and she stayed with us for a night or two, and she said, I'm going to see Puttaparthi Baba. And I believe for some reason I started crying, saying I want to go with her. I kind of vaguely remember, because I remember that lady, because somehow there was a connection. She told me, I'm going to see Sai Baba, I wanted to do that. But my parents said, you were not just crying, you threw up a tantrum, and you were insisting you have to go. But as a child, I don't think I did that consciously. There was some fancy to go. But now, if I look back, I feel there was some call already in motion. And there was a connection waiting to happen, which I didn't realize until many years later. So when the reason why my parents didn't allow me to go was, first of all, they didn't know this lady. I mean, they wouldn't just send their 5th grade child to. And then secondly, where are they sending it? If it was Kanchipuram, they would have said, okay, we know people there, you go and they'll pick you up. This was Puttaparthi. They didn't want Sai Baba, first of all, and then going to Sai Baba, they were afraid. We don't want our son to be sent there. And so I think Baba was patient. He said, okay, I rolled 1 dice, next time I will make sure. So I never knew much about Sai Baba. And these were days before, I know there are youngsters here, these are days before smartphones and Google and internet. So you really don't get to know unless they were printed on newspapers. There was an article in the newspaper. And even if there were books written, there were books written in the 60s and 70s, but they were few and rare. And then you have to go to a bookshop to buy it. You don't get to browse Amazon or Barnes and Nobles online and order a soft copy. So there was very little chance of you, unless you made effort to know Sai Baba. But then, as fate would have it, it turned out that when I was the right, you know, for everything, I think the universe creates circumstances. And if each one of you are asked to speak and say how you came across Sai Baba, every story is unique, and every story is worthy of being written. And I think we should document every single devotee's story of how they just came into the fold. That's it. Just how did you come? How did you first hear of Baba, and how did you come into this fold? And it's fascinating how he's drawn people from every walk of life, and everybody's story is so unique. Everybody's story is so unique. There's no one better than the other. Each one gets better than the other because they're all unique. And it's always fascinating. It was never by chance. It may appear that by chance you did it. Or maybe my child learned bhajan and so I started going and I got pulled in. He used sometimes children to pull the family in. In my case, that's exactly what he did. So, when I came to my 12th grade, my father got transferred to a distant town from Bombay to a distant town in India, far away from Delhi, up in the north, to a semi-rural place where there were no colleges, no schools, nothing that I could go to. So the question became, after he finishes 12th grade, where would Sundar go for college? That was the thing that worried my parents. And there weren't many residential colleges in India those days. There were a few of them, but either they were for the rich or they were for the intelligent. And I didn't belong to both these categories. So I knew I couldn't get into any of them. So my parents were really concerned. And as luck would have it, one thing led to the other. And it came to our knowledge that Sai Baba is opening up a college in Puttaparthi. And so the first reaction, of course, from my grandmother, I distinctly remember her saying, no, Puttaparthi Sai Baba in our house. I have a small story which I have not shared anytime, because at that point, and of course later on, we did go to, because I was trying to convince them, I wanted to get away from my parents, first of all. That was just the reason why I said, let me go somewhere. And so when I told my father that it is free education, then he said, okay, then we can give it a try. I mean, free, who can refuse free, right? This is how Swami opened the doors. He didn't expect only devotees to walk in. He didn't expect, and there's something we need to learn as devotees, as centers, and I think as groups. We expect people to have respect for Swami or to know Swami. We don't have to. We don't sit back and judge who can walk in, who cannot walk in. Swami opened all kinds of doors. People who thought, okay, they'll get free education and come, he said, come, with all the love, he opened the doors. And that's how I came to Swami. Otherwise, I would have never got exposed, and my life would have never seen the riches that it's seen today. The spiritual riches and the spiritual growth. I would have never seen that. I would have never experienced that had it been, there was a price tag attached to it. But Swami opened that door. Swami opens the door to people who say, I don't know Sai Baba and all, but I like the bhajan, so I just go. He's opened that door. Come, if you like to sing, come. My door is open. If you like to do seva, if you say, oh, well, this is all too much for me, I just want to go and serve and help them in their service, that door is also open. Every possible, and you want deep Advaitic thought and discussing deep philosophy, you have study circles that are open for you. Every aspect of spirituality, he opened the doors, right from day one. That is why he's an avatar. He's not come here to specialize you on one path. And of course, once you got into his inner fold, you will find which one was what. And it was never a watertight compartment. You could do all of them. You could do one of them. It didn't matter. Because ultimately, whatever door you entered, you all came to the same banquet table and ate the same food that he had come on to serve, which is the wisdom, the highest wisdom, that God is within you, that you don't have to search anywhere. So that is the beauty of Swami, and the way he really attracted people of all faiths, all religions, all beliefs. And never once did he insist, when we were there, never once did he insist to anyone that they have to let go of their faith and belief and worship him or look up to him. He said, I have come to light the lamp of love. That's all. I've come here to remind you of the obligation to love, the duty to love, the path of love. And so, and he really, we as young boys saw that every day of our lives with Baba as we stayed with him. How committed he was to his mission and how we carried on that task of spreading humanity, human values more than anything else. And so, my father said, okay, you can try it and see how it works. So when I heard that, we had a few weeks before I went to the summer course in Vrindavan. He said, there's a way you could go try and see some place. So we heard there's a summer course going to happen in Vrindavan. Summer courses were those days, and there was a gap, and then again Baba started again in the 90s. Summer course is a 1-month program, just like I'm attending a kids camp here for 1 week, where they stay there and the children are taught about Indian culture, values, and in this case, Iyer, who's running the show here, he teaches them about rituals, the inner meaning of rituals, why do you wave Harati, why do you break a coconut, and it's very fascinating to see how children are learning. At least there is a meaning to this madness, if you will. And the ancients were not people, were rather people who are so advanced in their knowledge. That's how they could, they knew the heavenly bodies that existed in the cosmos. They wrote about it. There is documents like Surya Siddhanta and other astrological documents which are fascinating. I mean, there is trigonometry introduced right at that, and nobody can even put a date to these documents yet. There are scholars debating whether it's 7,000 years old or 8,000 years old or 10,000 years old, but nobody can actually put a date to it because they're so old. And those days they would determine not only that there are some shining bodies out there, but they determined which was a planet, which was a star. They determined star constellations. They determined the planets. They determined the diameter of the planets. Determined the distance between the Earth and these planets. And they charted out a means of calculation, a formula through which Panchangam, as many of us know it today, that they predicted forever in the future. They have accurate predictions of lunar eclipses and solar eclipses and so on and so forth. All of this is already documented and put. This cannot be done by people who are somehow blind in their faith, or they just worship stones, or they worship thunder because they got scared of thunder. This comes from a greater awareness of the five elements and the environment of which we are part of. And therefore, by worshipping earth, water, fire, air, and space, they were worshipping every single aspect of themselves, because we are all products of these elements. We're not isolated from the universe, we're an intricate part of the universe. And therefore, in appreciating the elements, I'm appreciating every part of me, and understanding that I am not limited to my body, but I am part of this universe, and therefore I have something much bigger in me than my limited sense of I. This was the grandeur from which the Sanatana Dharma and the thought process has come down. So in summer courses like this, like Baba would do, he would do it for a whole month. And he would invite people from all parts of the country, students. There was an age limit. It was all youngsters only. I guess from 16 to 21 or something like that it was, before you go to college or something like that. So there was a very short, small age group that was invited to spend the whole 1 month there. Boys would stay in a separate place, girls would stay separately, but they would attend lectures, seminars, workshops. Whole day was packed from 5 in the morning till about 8:30 at night. And Baba would come and give discourses every evening, and every morning he would come and meet people and meet the boys and girls, just walk around and meet everyone, talk to everyone, make himself very available. And so my father said, why don't you go and try out this summer course first? Because by then, my family had kind of lost hopes on me. I was kind of the black sheep in the family. Because I was so tired of so many pujas and so many rituals, nobody explained to me why you're doing all this. Now I know a lot, and I do these pujas with a lot more awareness, a lot more understanding of, and it makes me more internalized than anything else with the understanding. But back then, nobody explained, and therefore, by the time I was 16, I said, no, I'm done with all this thing. I want a break. And so they said, now he's again going into Sai Baba. We don't know how long he will stay there for 1 month and run away. Then we'll again run around for colleges for this guy. So my father said, why don't you go and try out the summer course or whatever. See if you like it, if you can, if you're tuning into it, and then we will decide. So I said, okay. And therefore, even before I came to Swami's college in June, there was in this month of April, I think it was month of halfway from April into May, Swami had the summer course, and so we said, okay, well, let's go there. And so now India, you know, is very heavily populated. Now, even in those days when Baba was quote unquote less known, still there were too many people to handle. So if they said everybody can apply for it, there would be too many for them. They wouldn't be able to handle it. So they said, okay, we're going to have an examination in every state in India, and all these kids who are interested should apply for the exam, write the exam. And what the exam was, basic, just to check the basic prerequisites. One was if you are able to read and write English, because the medium of instruction in that camp was English. And then secondly, there were questions on basic Puranas and ethics to make sure you know who Rama was, or who Sita was, or who Jesus was, or who Buddha was. To have a background that this is a spiritual camp, a summer course in Indian culture and spirituality. So it was based on that. And so there was this examination that was held for which a date was fixed, and every state, then on basis of that, you get 20 boys and 10 boys, 10 girls, 20 from every state will be selected. So that was the plan. And so it so happened that a date was fixed for this examination. I was by then quite excited that, you know, after my 12th grade, I'm going to go to a place which is Andhra Pradesh and Bombay, far away from home and family. We were raised in a joint family. And my cousin with whom I shared every class and in fact, we sat at the same bench in every class, and I love him to death. But there's a but there simply because he was way too smart than me. He was topping the class, and I was covering the rear end, you know, like Rama and Lakshmana. We said, okay, you take care of the front, I was at the back. So constantly, you know how the older generation, how we raise children. Amanapara, look at him, how he be like him. I was like tired of listening to that. I wanted to be myself, but there was no chance given. So I wanted to run away from everyone and try to discover who am I. And so I was quite excited. But unfortunately, the date where the examination was fixed in the 12th grade for this summer course, man, it clashed with the day my last exam in my 12th grade was also happening. For some reason, they couldn't find another day. I don't know what it was. So I finished my exam, and their exams got over. So by the time I heard about it, I couldn't miss this one. And so as a young boy, I was 17 plus. I was so desperate that I want to get into the summer course. My father said, if you don't get in there, then I don't know if I can risk you sending you all the way for that, because you'll find some other college somewhere and get you admitted. So I was so desperate to join the summer course that I had to, I was running pillar to post, asking everybody whom I knew at the small little Sai centers, where do I go, whom do I talk to? I need to explain to them that I had exams. How could they plan an exam on the same day? And they said, no, but this is all planned at a higher level, we can't do anything about it. So being a Bombayite, I think there's some hot blood in me. So I said, who organizes all this? So I was told the state president organizes. So I said, I want to meet the state president. So I took a bus and went all the way to the city, to the town. He's a big businessman. And I found out where his office was. So I waited outside in the office. I was not allowed inside the lobby because I was wearing a short pant and a t-shirt. And they said, who are you? We don't know, just hang on. So I was waiting out in the road. And I saw him walking up the steps. I ran to him. I said, uncle, uncle. He said, yes. I said, Sai Ram. He said, Sai Ram. I said, I think you made a mistake. He said, what? I said, you know the exam that you put for summer course, I could not write it because I had my own exams in 12th grade. So can you redo the exam, or can you do something about it, because there's no way otherwise people like us can attend. So he looked at his secretary, who was personal PA or whatever was following him. He looked at him, gave him a look, and said, what do I do? So he said, he will help you, and he kind of escaped and he went away. And so I looked at the PA and said, what to do now? So he patted me, he said, Chucha bacha, we'll look after you. Don't worry. Okay. It's a nice way of saying, get out of here. Acha bacha, go, go, go. So I stared at them going inside. I wanted to follow, but I was not allowed. And I said, oh gosh, now what do I do? I came home. Now this was the first time, I think Swami puts you, all of us, to some kind of a little test, I feel. Not necessarily, but in my case at least also. A little test, a little teaser, and also a lesson, which I didn't get at that point, but I'm trying to combine all of them together now. I could piece them together now. And so I came back thinking, my God, I want to go, and this is the second time that yearning was there, not to see him, but just to go and experience summer course. It was not, Baba was the last thing in the equation, but summer course, being alone, camp, it sounded more like fun. And I wanted to do that so desperately, but this was not happening. So I came back home, and I was living with the uncle by then, because my father had already was in Haryana. And so I spoke to my uncle. I said, what do I do? He said, have you tried prayer? I said, pray to whom? Not these gods again. He said, try it. And I said, what do I pray? I don't know any prayer. Mind you, I was raised in chanting. I had gone to Balvika's Bal Vihar of Chingananda. I knew Bhagavad Gita and all that as a child. I had learned all of that. But they were all just memorize, chant. We're good in chanting, but there was no, for me, I'm not blaming the institution, they're doing a fantastic job. It was me. I wasn't able to connect to these things internally. So somebody says, you sit and pray. I go to chant, but how does that become a prayer? I could memorize the Bhagavad Gita and chant 18 chapters, but I couldn't know what a prayer was. So I told him, I don't know what a prayer is. What do I do? So he was having a book he was reading, and it was Saundarya Lahari, written by Adi Shankara. So he said, okay, here's what I'm reading, and you're asking me, so this is the book, I'll share with you something. I said, okay, anything will work. And so he read the first paragraph of the Saundarya Lahari. It's in Sanskrit. Adi Shankara says, Shiva and Shakti who is worshipped by the supreme power of the universe. He's referring to that. He's saying who is worshipped by Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma, all the trinities worship this divine energy. And I, who cannot even understand who you are, how can I even dare worship you? Even to worship you, I need to understand you. So, Katamakrata Punyaha Prabhavati, it goes, it's a long stanza. So he read it out to me. He said, if you chant this, your prayers are granted. I said, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to learn. He said, wait a minute. You have to chant it for 12 days. I said, okay, I can do it for 12 days. It's 4 lines. How bad can it be? He said, you have to chant it for 1,000 times every day. I said, what? He said, one. That's what it says here. He said, that's what it says. I don't know. I haven't tried it. If you want to try, you can try it. And as a young boy, having tried the state president, now I know nobody else will answer me. I said, what have I got to lose? I was sitting at home anyway. And so I decided to give it a try. The chant goes like this. Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yadi Bhavati Shaktaha Prabhavitum Na Chedevam Devo Na Kushalaha Spanditumapi Atastvamadhyam Harihara Virinchadi Birapi Pranantum Stotum Va Katamakrita Punyaha Prabhavati. So this is how long it was. If it was Om Sai Ram, I could have done 1,000 times easy. But somewhere I feel, Swami inspired me to do that, but also at the same time taught me that, it's not going to be so easy for you to walk in. I took it up as a challenge. I said, let me try it. And he said, there should be no break. I said, okay, there will not be any break. And so I took it up as a challenge. And the first day it took me about 10 hours to finish it. By then my mouth was not, my tongue was twisted. I was just so dry in my mouth. But then I didn't give up. And so I continued all the 12 days. From 10 hours, it came down to about 6 hours every day. But I managed to finish it. And one of those days, I remember, there was a very small little incident that happened. I cannot still understand how it was, but somebody, some Sai devotee who had known me by then, had befriended me locally, he came, he said, Sundar, I know you're doing, can I sit with you and listen to you? I said, yeah, sure, I love some company because I'm getting bored chanting this 5 hours in that little house with my uncle and a huge altar. So he finished it and then he said, by then my cousin also had come, he said, I will teach you some Sai bhajans, you want we can sing some bhajans. I said, okay. And my grandmother was there. She said, no, we don't want Sai bhajans and all that. He said, Amma, this is just simple bhajans, there's nothing wrong. So she said, okay, whatever you all want to do. And she got a little annoyed, but she went off to the other room. We 3 of us sat and we sang the bhajans. For about 45 minutes I was following and he was singing. At the end of the bhajan, we did Arati. So at the end of the Arati, in the house there was a practice, you wave the Arati in the altar, and then you go out, in the outside of the door, there is a picture of God kept in every door. So we go to the door and open the door and wave the Arati there as well. That was a practice in my uncle's place. So at the end of the day, they did an Arati, they went and opened the door to do the Arati. There were 3, because 3 of us were sitting, there were 3 pictures of Swami tucked inside that, in the picture. And nobody to this day knows who put in those pictures, how did those pictures come. There were 3, we took 1 each. And I told my grandmother, look, you didn't get 1. And I also told her, maybe because you said he does not come into the house, he stayed outside, just put his picture and went off. So that was something unique that happened. But I didn't connect it to Swami. I mean, I just joked about it and we thought, I don't know, maybe somebody heard Sai bhajans and put a picture or something like that. But now I know that it's more than that. Anyway, so after the 12 days got over, I went to my uncle and said, so now what? I finished the 12 days and now what? He said, I don't know. I just told you what is in the book. I don't know what else to do. And so that's when I came at a crossroad of, okay, so prayer is done, now what? And so when I was in that lull state, and I want to say lull state because I'll come back to that in a bit. A week or so passed by and then somebody knocked the door. I opened the door and the same Sevadal friend of mine who came for bhajan, he said, Sundar, I know you've been praying for something, I've got good news for you. I said, what is it? He said the state has organized another date for the exam, again, select more students, but they didn't get too many people. So I was thrilled. So I said, oh, this thing works really. And so I wrote the exam, I was selected, I went to a summer course, I attended that 1 month. That is where I saw Baba for the first time. I was very amazed at the way he was so easily accessible. He was not sitting in one place and people were going to him. He was rather walking among people, and with us students, he he was so easily accessible, and his discourses were easily understandable. We could put, it wasn't so high in philosophy. He used simple stories, simple anecdotes, familiar Puranas and epics of Indian culture that he brought out to explain the inner significance. More than anything, he used phrases like, there is one religion, religion of love. There is service to man, a service to God. Things we could relate to. And I immediately kind of took a great liking to his teachings. And I wanted to know more about this guru. And when you're staying in Puttaparthi, you hear, or in Vrindavan, you hear so many stories of Baba from people, and other students who came. They had fantastic stories, and I had none. And I was thinking, if even an iota of these stories are true, then my life will completely change. But I need some story for myself. Where is my story in all this? Where is my Baba in all this? How do I make that connection? I still didn't get to understand how to pray to him. And so the summer course finished, and a few of us who wanted admission, there's 4 of us boys, I think, who stayed back. And we all moved to Puttaparthi, followed Baba, because after Vrindavan he goes to Puttaparthi, and Puttaparthi college starts in June. So we all followed him, stayed there. I was waiting for my results to come, and I said, as soon as the results come, I'll go and get myself admitted. I found out what the procedure was. The principal then said, all you have to do is come here, fill the application form, show me your grades card. And if you want study a graduation in commerce, then you need to have A+ grade, and if you want in science, you need a O+ grade. It wasn't actually grades, but I'm just using that relatively. It was more percentage, 60% and above, and 80% and above, and 40% and above for arts. So he had kind of indicated that. Now, of course, there's a proper examination, entrance examination and all that. I mean, we were helping later on instruments and setting up those exams for others. And I always remember, thank God I didn't have to write another exam. I would have never cleared that. But I got lucky, I guess. So I was waiting for my grades card and watching Baba and going to the villages, asking people more stories. There were old devotees of Baba, old young classmates of Baba, who would say, some of them were like, I don't know, he's become very rich, he's forgotten all of us. You have that side of the story. The other side of the story is, oh my God, and they will tell you stories about Chitravati days and all that. And these were in the late 70s, right? 1979, this college started. So you still had a lot of people who were in that generation of the early Sai generation in the 40s and 50s, when Baba was, after declaring himself in 1940, he moved around with those devotees, and many of them decided to stay in Puttaparthi. And they stayed there for a very, very long time, till the very end. Many of them stayed back. And if you see those old ladies who were grouped together and right in front of Baba's darshan when he used to walk around. If you see the old videos, you'll see a group of old ladies sitting in the front. There were 2 reasons why Baba said, let the old ladies sit right in the front. One was, they are old. Number one, I don't want them to come last minute and stand in the ticket and pick coupons and all. So let them come, the place is reserved for them always. So you're always there, grateful. And he said the old ladies right in the front where the boys are sitting, so I want them to see the old ladies only. I don't want them to be seeing any other ladies. So two reasons. 2 reasons why he put ladies right in front, the oldest possible ladies right in the front. Because he knew these are all youngsters sitting here. That's how patient he was with us. He worked with us one step at a time. He always believed in our goodness rather than point our faults. And that goodness slowly took over, and the little faults that we had slowly became lesser and lesser, because we saw somebody believing in who we are, kept reminding us of our own goodness. And so these ladies had amazing stories to tell about Swami and his young days. Many of them treated Swami as their own child. In fact, many years later, when Swami drove us, a few of us, he drove us, about 4 or 5 of us, he took us with him to some of these devotees' homes in Madras and Bangalore. And these are very old devotees by then. He would come and have lunch with them. It was a very private gathering. So it would be just their family, Swami and us. And so we would have lunch, and Swami would say, feed these boys well. And of course they would want to feed you, and you can't eat so much. And Swami is watching, so you can't waste food. So we had all those fun times as well. But anyway, after that, Swami would sit down and say, okay, tell those stories, all your old stories, you tell them. I think there was a purpose why, at least I feel for me, and I draw lessons from that, to learn how he was so clear in what he wanted to do. So I distinctly remember this lady telling, I want to share with you young boys one story when Swami was your age, when he would come to my house. He would drive a car and come, or he would get somebody to drive him. Because he got a car later. He had his own car, so he would drive down to a devotee's house, knock at the door in the middle of the night, and said, I've come. So there's those days where you can't call, there's telephones are a rarity. Where from Puttaparthi didn't even have power lines, where will you have telephone lines, right? And so he would have a car, he would drive down, wake them up in the middle of the night and come, and he would spend a week or two there, and every day they would do satsangs. So he'll say, we had so much trouble with Baba doing satsangs in our house, because their satsangs will go on in the night, and we'll have to tell him, please Baba, we have to go to work tomorrow. You start doing satsang, we can't keep cooking, so enough of satsang, now go sleep. So we would force him to go to sleep because he was young. And, or he would just not drink anything, so he'd say, come, have some coffee or tea. And so they just treated Swami as their son. And it was nice to listen to those stories, because for me, Swami was my Sadguru by then. And this was in the much later 80s when I was doing PhD and Swami was taking us around to these places. And so it was fascinating to see that one whom we treat as our Sadguru and a divine, for divine guidance, there's also this other side where he was young, and these mothers treated him scolded him for being up so late in the night and said, go to bed. Otherwise you'll have your throat will be sore tomorrow, you can't sing the whole day again. And so he's one of those who enjoyed long bhajan sessions, and everything. 7-8 hours they would say, bhajans would be 7-8 hours if we started off. So people never closed their doors to Swami. They always liked him, but when he came, they were like, oh my gosh, he's come again. high maintenance he was. And that's how Akhanda Bhajan also started in somebody's place. Anyway, I don't want to get too diverted here. I'll come back to my story, but after this little thing. And so this lady kept saying how she would explain to Swami that the young Sai Baba, who's a 20-year-old whose house is called this wild dreams, as she called it, about saving the world and spreading human values, and thousands of people are going to come to me, you don't know, and all that. They thought this boy is delirious. I mean, he's a holy man. They knew he had powers. They were following him. That's why they went to Puttaparthi and discovered him. They were very devoted to him, but yet it's very difficult for the mind to fathom when you're close to Swami. And I can speak for that as well, because when we were close and Swami would say something, we would look at Swami and nod, but the mind won't understand that. It's impossible for our mind to understand his words. At that time, we will think, okay, Swami is just saying something. And then when it happens, you're like, wow, what he said actually happened. So they would tell Swami, I believe these ladies, Swami, don't go starting this ashram in that back of the beyond place that we call Puttaparthi. And I believe she told the Swami, Puttaparthi name at least we should change. We have people in the British government, we can do something. The name is itself scary, because the name means ant hills, like where snakes reside. So talk of branding and names, he chose everything, he broke all the rules at every place, if you notice. He chose to be in a place called Puttaparthi. So Swami place itself, the name is scary, number one. Number two is the place, there's no road leading to that village. You have to cross a river to go to that village. It's kind of isolated. The river floods, you can't go in, not come out. How do you expect people to come there? How do you expect to do this big mission of yours, staying in Puttaparthi? We have connection, we will buy you a land in Madras, and we will help you set up a place here. From here you spread all that. Now this is how your mind and my mind will work, right? This is how we think. We need a good place, good location, make it convenient for people to come. This is what happens when we think of retreats and programs. We have taken the liberty, so to, if you will, the liberties to shift Shivratris to weekends, to shift Navratris to weekends. Why? Because it's convenient for us. Whereas these are all lunar festivals, they have to be associated on that date, and the moon is in a particular phase, that's when you celebrate. But we celebrate on the weekend because it's convenient. So that is how we think, and so we are advising a guru like Swami, please think about that, make it convenient for people to come. He said, no, I don't want. They will come to me. When the time has come, right, they will come to me. They will all come to me. I will start it in Puttaparthi. And these older devotees gave up hope. They said, this is not going to work anyway. As long as we are here, you come and be part of us. So that is the kind of Swami who grew to what he was today. I mean, the beauty is, he broke every rule of management. He already broke rules of science, right? You could materialize things out of nowhere. So that was already done. Every rule of management, every rule of business, every rule location, he chose the most hardest place to reach. The name of the village was not only difficult to pronounce, not only difficult to remember, or not only not on the map of India, but also scary once you understood what it was. And the weather was not great, the weather was extreme hot. So, and no water conditions were bad. Everything that you can think of for failure, he went and set his place right there. To me, that's a great lesson. What is the lesson we as youngsters or we as devotees should learn from that? That when we think of something being successful, we think of factors that need to be successful. Like today, especially the youngsters and all of us, we think in order to be successful, I should be good in social networking, I should be able to socialize, I should be able to, my attire should be this and this, I should know more than one language and this and that. And we have a whole list of what all things we need to be successful. And yet, you find gurus like these, masters like these, who break those rules and be even more successful than you can ever imagine in what they want to do. Because what is success ultimately? Success is the ability to do what you want to do and the ability to fulfill your desire to its completion. And so, when I was raised as a youngster in my family, we were told stories of Krishna, that he was a cowherd, a son of a cowherd. He was born in a prison. His uncle was ill-treating all the children, and therefore he was smuggled out, and he was raised as a cowherd in a small village. Nobody knew his name, and then he became the emperor of Dwarka. So as a young boy, I said, give me a break. This must be one of those fantasy stories. How can if you need to be an emperor, what all you need, you can't just be one villager and grow up to become an emperor. I didn't believe that story. When I go to school, I was raised in a Catholic school, I heard about Jesus. He was raised as a son of carpenter, he was hidden from the Romans, and he was smuggled out into Nazareth, and he was born in the dark of the night, and nobody knew his name, and they tried to hide him, but then he became the Son of Man, the leader who inspires millions of people even today. So I said, this is all must be great stories to hear, but these are not practical things. These don't happen in today's world, and this was back in the 70s. But then, when I examined Swami's life, it was exactly the same. It was history repeating itself one more time. Born in a village, completely poor, with no financial backing, no social networking skills, sorry, Swami, if you will, not the way you and I understand it. No education, no degrees, and if you had done a graduation, and business graduation in philosophy and modern religion in Harvard, and then said, all right, I'm going to establish a mission to save the world, that would have been different, I guess. But it was none of those. If you look at Swami's background, he had nothing that would have made him what he was later. Now, I know it's easy for us to say, but he is God, that's why he did it, or he's an avatar, he could do it. And I think then we create that distance, put him up in a picture, hang a garland, wave aarti, and go home saying, he can do, but I can't. But that's where we miss the point. Baba said, if I had come like that with 4 arms, you would have put me in a museum and charged fees for my darshan. But I came like you, and I went even lower than you. Like you have money, I have no money. You had parents, I had parents, but they were not greatly supportive of what I was doing. In fact, when he said I have a mission on earth, they took him to an exorcist. They thought he was possessed. Because which village boy will suddenly say I have a mission on earth? His job was to go, take the goats up the hill, come back, go to school. He drops out of school and he says, I have a mission on earth. So they actually physically cut open his head, and many of you know this story, but I won't go into those details, you can read them. But then he stuck to that, he stuck to his vision, his mission as a 13-year-old boy, 14-year-old boy, the dream that he had, he stuck to it no matter what. And throughout his life, he never compromised on who he was, never compromised on the quality of his mission, never compromised on what people would say or what people would think. He never compromised that to fit. He never tried to fit into what people wanted, because he wouldn't have had this attire. He would have come up with attire that people would like and recognize him. He chose an attire that everybody would say, no, this can't be God. He chose that attire, and yet here we are thousands of miles away, many, many years after his physical demise, or physical samadhi, we're still talking about him. Continues to inspire our lives. He said, I'm doing this so that I can be a role model for you. You can also do this. I can do this. You can also do this. There is no difference. And so, to me, when I saw Swami, in the couple of years that I stayed with him, because, like I was talking about the admission, and now I stopped the story there and didn't get distracted, but I diverted to this, and I want to go back and finish that real quick and come back to the Swami part. Because it's so important that we go home understanding this part of it, that he is not one more God that we need to worship. Especially for those of us from India, we have 33 million gods already, right? In the Puranas they say, we have one more God. That's why we are so easily accommodating. We don't have any problem worshipping one more God. Yeah, all religions are welcome, because we have no problem. We already have so many gods anyway. That's good and bad in a way, because then we don't realize that these are all symbols of our own divinity. And if there were human elements to it, like avatars, like Baba, that we can relate to, that they're meant to be role models that we can fashion our lives after, not just only worship. But let me finish that story of admission in a short span. So I waited for my grade cards to come, and they came. It was very, very poor grades. I had less than 48% or something, so it was B or B plus or something, or C maybe. And so when I went to this principal, he said, I'm sorry, I cannot admit you into the commerce line. You can go into the arts line. But my father had already decided I must do commerce. He said, if you're going there, you have to do commerce. Arts, you have no future. Commerce, you have to do. Science is too difficult for you, you can't do it. So that was already written on my forehead. Right from the time I was 8 or 10, they said, nah, this guy is not good for science. So, and I love science, by the way. But anyway, perhaps next life. And so that's the second time for that prayer to come back. The second hurdle I had to cross to get to Swami was that little thing where I said, I can't come this far and go back not getting admission into college. Now I was grown to become fond of Swami because I knew what he was doing. I said, if I want a guru, I want somebody like him. Because him I can relate to. I can ask him dumb questions and he can answer. I've seen others doing it. I've not had the chance yet, but I said, this is the guru I want to relate to. I want to be here. But then I saw my grade card. My father had already, along with the letter, he already sent me the return ticket. He said, you better come back to Bombay. We'll figure out what to do with you. And so I knew that I was in deep trouble if I go back. Because the whole family is going to barge down on me saying, we told you so before, study harder. So I said, no, I'm not going to face my family. So I was desperately seeking to get in. And every day I would go to this principal of college and say, please let me come in. So, sir, please give me admission. Please give me. I used to put bigger vibhutis and bigger pom-poms. So whatever impresses this guy, I will do anything that's possible. But then so he started avoiding me. He saw me at a distance and started avoiding me because I was really nagging him. Because I said he's the only person, he just has to say yes and I would be able to get in. Because all he needs to sign is the application form. But he said, see, my son, I have directions from Baba. It's not my choice. I cannot break. I wish I can give you admission. I know how interested you are, but I cannot break the rules. Because two other boys who came with me, they took the arts. They had no problem. Because their family was so devoted, they said, whatever it is you go, you're not coming back home, join Swami's college. I said, I wish I had parents like that. So they joined, and the classes had already started. It was already 6 days into the classes. So this was June 6th, I would believe, or 9th, something like that. So when this happened, I was like, I was the only one left and I wanted this. But then when I saw the letters and the classes started, I knew there was no hopes. For me, approaching Swami directly was so beyond my comprehension. Because he was already, he would come for darshan. Where will I ask him? What will I ask him? And so, my frustration turned to anger. As a young boy, what else can I do? So I thought I'll tell this Sai Baba what a fake he is and how angry I am with him. Because I am doing this and I'm not getting anywhere. So all these people telling stories are just their imagination. It should work for me. What is wrong? Why can't it work for me? And even though I couldn't pray to him, literally, I can't close my eyes and say, Swami, please help me. I couldn't do it from heart. I was thinking, how can I pray to him? I have not learned how to pray to him. And I wasn't ready to do that 1,000 times a day, 12 days again. I said, no, I'm not going back there again. I never went back. That's too much for me. So I said, no, there has to be some way out. So, but then like I said, 2 days before I left, I wrote this letter to Swami, a very nasty letter, saying that I'm leaving, but I tried my best. I'm not getting admission in your college. And so this is the last time I'm going to believe in all this God and religions and values and all that. So whatever was in my heart, I just poured it out. And I said, the moment you take it, you're going to cut the relation with you, whatever it was. So I wrote it, put it in an envelope, sealed envelope. I said, I will sit right in front in the darshan line, and I will give it to him, look into his eyes. I don't want to, go away like a puny little crybaby. I want to look into his eyes, tell him, this is what I think of you, here, take it, and go. So angry I was. So I went that afternoon and sat early, because those days there were no tokens. You could just go early. At 2 o'clock you can go and sit in the blazing sun and wait for 4 o'clock darshan. And so at 2 o'clock I went right to the front in the edge. So there was an arch on that side ladies, this side gents. And so on the corner of the gents, right in the first, there's no way he would miss me. I said, I want to give this letter. Because I had made up my mind it's going. So this is another time where if there was any prayer or any asking, it all kind of died down to a silence, a state, I'm just going to give it and go. And I saw Swami come out for darshan, he's giving darshan, and the boys had come out by then, and I was keeping my letter in my hand, ready like this. I didn't expect anything else but other than he taking the letter and walking past. But to my surprise, he stopped, and this is something so unexpected it was, that he stopped and he took his fingers like this, held the envelope like that, as if he's going to take it, because sometimes Baba takes envelopes like this. I don't know if you watch some videos. He takes it like this, he also takes it like this. And so he kept his hand like this and leaned towards me. He says, Kya hai? Kya hai? I mean, looked at me and asked, Kya hai? He spoke to me. And I was so surprised. I said, oh, he's speaking. I jumped onto my knees. I was like, immediately, I said, Baba, admission, admission, admission. And immediately I said, Swami, BCom, BCom. BCom is Bachelor's in Commerce. So it's kind of abbreviated. And those of us from India, my generation will know BCom, BSc is Bachelor's in Science, and BA is Bachelor's in Arts. So I said, BCom, BCom, because my father's voice from inside was saying, make sure you specify it. Because that was so much on my mind. I better make everything clear. There's just like a second. And Swami was so playful. He said, BCom? Be calm. And I heard the giggle. I was so thrilled that he's speaking to me and he's listening to me. And then, to my surprise, I vaguely remember this. He looked at me, he turned around, and across the sands, the principal was sitting there. He looked at the principal. He did something like that. Something like that. I don't know exactly what he did. He just kind of take care of this man fellow, kind of a thing. And he walked away, but he didn't take the letter. He kept it like this. Maybe he decided, should I cut this guy off? Or like a scissor, his hand came. And then he just didn't take the letter. He went off. And I was glad the letter was not taken. Because over the years, I believe that he was very aware of every single act of his. He was very aware of every single word that came out of his mouth. Even though you and I, we do so much mindlessly. He was mindfulness, embodiment of mindfulness. So he knew every act of his meant significance. So even if he had taken the letter, in the letter what would I have written would have probably come true. And I'm glad he didn't. So the darshan got over and I ran to the principal. Sir, sir, sir. He smiled. He was all smiles. This time he didn't avoid me. I said, did you see Swami spoke to me? He said, I saw. Did you see Swami said something to you? He said, yes, I did. So can I get admission in commerce? He said, yes, whatever you want, you can get admission. So, I look back at that moment, always, because I was talking to somebody today, what would our life been if Swami was not there? I don't know. I don't want to think that, because it didn't happen that way. So that was a really a turning point, if you will, if there was any one turning point, that moment. Not the summer course prayer, I didn't match all that. This one was a turning point. I said, oh my God, finally it worked with him interfering without me having asked. And it still took 1.5 years after that for me to get a personal relation with Swami, like a one-on-one, I should say. Because I was still part of, there were only 60 boys then. Some of you have probably met some of these students who came here. Brother Hariharan, if he had come here to sing bhajans, if he were not here at Rochester, at Devi Temple and other places, he would play the harmonium and sing. So he was my batch, and he was the only one who knew music. And if you ask him about Sundar, he'd say, I spent sleepless nights trying to teach him to sing bhajans. And he did, he was my mentor of sorts. So we all were there, there were 60 of us. And even though there were 60, there was still 60. I needed that one-on-one. Like, where is my Sai Baba in this? Where is my Swami in this? And it became even more slowly intense, that my seeking of I want that relation. Now that I'm in the college, now I know 3 years I'm here. And after degrees, I don't know what I'm going to do after my graduation, but I'm here for now. And I need to use this time fully. And so it took a while. We were staying in the mandir itself. The college was not ready, the hostel was not ready. And we were staying in the mandir. We used to go and spread our beds in where Swami walked in the sand. We would sleep there in the nights, and sometimes Swami would open the bedroom window and peep. So we had all those golden opportunities. I didn't realize how beautiful they were at that time, but I got to understand them slowly. Of course, I was still waiting for that one-on-one. And then the hostel inauguration came, and I got a chance to perform some feats in front of Baba. It was the first time we did some gymnastic feats and all that. So as a young boy, my father would wake us up when I was 10 years old. He would wake us up because he would get up for his puja at 3:30 in the morning. And 2 little rooms in Bombay, what do? The kitchen becomes the puja room, or the living room becomes the puja room. And so they have to sweep and mop the floor. Everybody is up, wide awake at 3:30, 4 in the morning. Everybody is rushing for showers and all. And we kids will be sent off to the nearby gymnasium, about a couple of kilometers away. So go walk down, go learn sun salutations and come. So at that point I didn't like it, but now I don't look back and regret it. I think these are all, Patanjali in Yoga Sutra says you take off from where you left off in the previous life. It's never a waste. So don't think that you do something now and somebody is very devoted and he dies what you and I can call an untimely death. It doesn't mean in the higher scheme of things, he just simply picks up from where he left and carries on in his evolution in a better place, more conducive to where he left off. And therefore, Patanjali says it's more important that you do spiritual work towards your own spiritual upliftment. Therefore, you take off in a better way in your next life, and so on and so forth. So I know now that it wasn't my father who woke me up. It was my deep-seated jiva within me saying, get up and go back to that path of yoga. I didn't realize then, but now I know that was my path, and Baba later on introduced me. So in this inauguration time in 1980, December 25th, as Baba came to inaugurate, we had a chance to perform something. And so I performed where I could climb a rope about 20 feet from the ground. I could perform asanas on the rope. I learned it as a child in Bombay. It's called Rasi Malkam in Maharashtra. So I learned it and performed, and Baba was so thrilled with it. And we did the fire rings, and I jumped through the rings, and the rings got caught into me. There's another story, but I'll keep that for some other time. The next day, Baba came and asked, where is that mad fellow? Where is that fire boy? Where is that monkey fellow who climbed the rope and did yoga? So that was my first encounter, where he asked for me. And then he asked, what's your name? And I said, Sundar Iyer. Sundaram Iyer, and somehow the name Sundaram Iyer stuck with Baba forever. He always called me Sundaram Iyer, except much later he called me Sundar Iyer on stage once, announced my name and felicitated me for something. That was my first time Swami got to know me, or I got to know Swami rather. He knows me from many generations. But I got to know Swami. And in a month or so after that, he called me for my first interview. Until then, I'm just writing to my parents, this is what's happening, I'm having a great time. Oh, by the way, send some more money. Kids like that. So, in the first interview, so many things happened. Because by then, I wanted to know Swami personally. I had known most of them, in fact, who were my colleagues. They were all devotees, children of parents who were devotees. They had experiences. I had none, and I wanted to know, what does Swami do up in his room? Does he sleep? Does he eat? Does he watch TV? Does he have a sofa? What is in that upstairs there? I was so curious. It was not cheekiness, it was more curious, a genuine curiosity to know. I said, I really want to know. If I want him as my guru, I want to know everything about him. But the more I would go and ask these, the VIPs who would come out of this room, what's going on inside? How does the room look? What is this? Nothing, you will find out someday. And the more they avoided, the more curious I became. I said, why can't they just sit down and tell me exactly what they want? And so, in the first interview, Swami called me. He called me inside, cornered me right into the room and said, Kya mangta hai? Almost like there's no time with him. He's just, first of all, I'm so close to him that first time I'm getting one-on-one with Sai Baba. It was, and by then, you spend 1.5 years, you know how it's a precious moment. You can't miss it. You have to be careful of what you speak, what you ask. But by the time you're inside, you've forgotten everything. Your mind is blank. And then he pushes you alone, and that too. From that big crowd, it's come to like 10 people in the interview room. He's talking to everybody, then he's picking up one by one, and I'm waiting for my turn. My God, he's going to call me alone. What am I going to ask? And then he calls you alone, and you're alone with him. That was my first time. And he doesn't give you time to take a deep breath or anything. There's no time for him. And so he as soon as I went, kya mangta hai? Kya mangta hai? What do you want? Enna varna. All 3 languages, he shot at me. I said, nothing, Swami. No, tell what happened. What do you want? And at that moment, this is again him orchestrating it through me, making this happen. Because what happened, transpired next was the reason why my entire family and everyone came to Baba. But at that moment, I didn't know that. Because the days that I've spent in, the 1.5 years I spent with Baba, they had been writing letters to me, please tell Baba that your sister is, she needs a child and she's been married 11 years, please ask Baba about her. And I said, where am I going to get up to ask Baba? My sister needs a child. I felt that most embarrassing thing, I would never do that. But I was polite to them, I said, yeah, I'm not getting a chance, I'll leave it. I had completely eliminated the thought of me getting up to ask, because I was thinking the boys around will make fun of me, right? So I was not even thinking about that. But in the room, when he cornered me and said, what do you want? First I said nothing because my mind was blank. But he forced me. I said, Swami, my sister. And that was because I wanted my first one-on-one experience of omniscience, omnipotency. He has no time, he's giving me all that as shortcut. So that was my first one-on-one with this omniscience. The fact that he knows. The moment I said my sister, he said, 11 years, marriage, no child, Swami went down as tying medicines, this test, that test, they went to sannyasi, sadhus, they did this puja, that puja, nothing is going on, your mother is all the time crying, you are Muruga, she's crying. When I told this my mother, she said, did he say Muruga? I said, yeah, exactly like the way you do, yo Muruga. So exactly he imitated you. And Swami it was almost like pouring non-stop for about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, all about my sister. And I was just standing like this. It was almost my height, right? So I'm looking at, how is this happening? How does he know this? So, and then to my shock, then comes omnipotence, right? Omniscience is done, omnipotence comes right following. He said, don't worry, Swami Prasad deta hai, Swami will give you Prasad. 8 months, baby boy will be born. I just took a few moments. I didn't digest it yet. I'm going to come out of the room and then digest that. That was too much because somebody didn't give me a chance to process that information. That was a lot of information. 8 months. Shouldn't have been 9 months. It should be 8 months. What is this? Baby boy. How does he know it's going to be baby boy? First of all, how does he even know she's going to conceive? When will that happen? So 8 months means it should happen right away now. Conceiving, right? And so all that I was processing outside, waiting. But at that moment I didn't have time because the next thing came up. And the next thing was, what do you want? Okay, what do you want? At that moment, and I'm glad I said this, really, really glad that Mother Saraswati sat on my tongue and made me speak. I said, Baba, I want to be in your room. And he said, come from tomorrow. It made it so easy that sometimes, I use this as a lesson that the universe simply wants you to just place your wish at its feet and it will grant you. We are the ones who complicate it. We are the ones who think, maybe I don't deserve it. Who am I going to ask for this? This is enough. We don't know all that. This is more. All of these limitations we put on ourselves. If I had thought about asking this at that moment, I would have said, no. How can I ask? I'm still new to Baba. Who am I to ask? And he's got so many. What would he think? He might scold me. He didn't give me a chance to think, and I did it. And the moment I placed it, he said, come from tomorrow. I use that as a very important lesson. That you go to the universe with no conditions. Because When I say universe, I mean God, intelligence, universe, Sai, however we relate to it. It has no condition. It's capable of everything. Anything is possible. What you think is impossible is possible. It will put time and space together, align resources the way you would think it will never happen, it will happen. But you don't have to worry about it. That's the best part in surrendering that desire. Just place it at the feet and say, you do it. It's not mine anymore. And that takes the burden off you. So when I say, come from tomorrow. And I was so happy as a young boy. I said, oh, thank you, Swami. I hugged him. He pushed me back, saying, you're spoiling my hair. Hey. He made me say, hey, you're spoiling my hair. I was so excited coming into this room again tomorrow. I was like, wow. And I came out. Now there's too many things going on in my head. You see how excited I would have been. Coming out, first of all, things for my sister, and now this tomorrow interview room. So as I'm sitting, he finished a few more interviews. I was thinking, oh gosh, now my sister's thing, what is it again? He said 8 months, he said baby boy, and he said he'll give prasad. So actually I'm going to see now him materialize something. Oh, this will be so nice because I'm going to watch him materialize at close quarters. And something for me. So not for me means, but still he's going to give it to me. Again, I made this assumption he's going to materialize something. Because miracle, right? We think miracles have to be something out of the ordinary. Whereas simple things can be miracle. You could open a book and there might be a message for you. That could be the greatest miracle. It's never a coincidence. Nothing is a coincidence in life. Everything is orchestrated. But at that point, I thought, if he's going to cure my sister of 11 years of infertility, if you will, or whatever that was, and if he's going to bless them with a child, then there has to be a miracle. And a miracle means he has to perform something like this. And I was looking forward to it so much. And so Swami finished the interviews and he picked up his wire basket, little plastic wire basket, which all the people he packaged and started distributing to everyone. And I was thinking, okay, this means the interview is coming to an end. What about the one he told about Mrs. Has he forgotten it? And so I also, showed my palms, and he went to everybody and he took a big bunch, dropped it on my palms as well. And I kept looking at him like wide eyes, and he passed me and then he looked back and said, what happened? I said, Swami, prasad for my sister. He looked at my hand, he said, say, I gave it to you, send that. Diya hai, send it to. Registered post, send it. And for a moment, I looked at my palm in disbelief. I said, this is not going to work. He's giving from the same basket to everybody. I said, I'm sure everyone has not asked for a child in that day. So there's no way this is going to work. This is not a miracle at all. This is just he's picking out on the basket. He's playing with us. And I was so disappointed. Like it was a big letdown for me at that moment. And then Swami finished it, he went and put the basket back on the windowsill, he turned around and told everybody, see young boys these days, doubting Thomas. All the time doubts. He told me, send it to your sister, she has more faith. Send it by registered post. And then he put it in your pocket, he said, I put it in my pocket. Then he walked up to me. He said, doubting Thomas. And then he came right up to me and he pulled his robe sleeve all the way up. And right over my head, he waved his hand. And I was going like this. I guess my first eye exercise in yoga. So he went like this, right over my eyes. And he covered his palm. And he opened it. There was a little silver medallion which I wear. And he said, wear it. And he said, from today I am your Sarathi, Sanatana Sarathi. I am your charioteer. So, in that one interview, I got a chance to see his omniscience, omnipotence and everything. And the ability to materialize. And of course, that was just the beginning. And from that day on, almost every single day, I could say, for the next 15 years, we saw hundreds and hundreds of materializations and the ability to transcend the laws of space, if you will. But Swami did that almost spontaneously out of just love. It was almost like an expression of love. And once he explained to us also, when you think of something, you think of it, and then you go get the materials and you make it. Why? Because your thinking is not so clear. Then you have to draw it to get more clarity. Then you were studying how you draw, then you cut a paper, and then you make it into a boat. Then you say, this is boat. Then the boat comes in. For you, it takes time to make a paper boat. For me, it's so clear. The moment I think, it comes. You can also do it if you want to. He always makes it very simple. You can also do it. If you have that clarity in your mind, it will manifest in your hand. But that's true, right? Every single thing, the chair that we sit on, everything here was once a thought in somebody's mind, and it's manifested. So it's a matter of just squeezing all that into one moment. If that thought is so clear and so precise and so concise, exactly, and it's a product come out of love, then manifestation, why shouldn't it occur? It just happens on the spot. Because almost like it has to be done, it'll be done, and let's move on. There's nothing much there to look at it. And so hundreds of materializations we saw. In fact, Swami called us for a music program, practice. We were practicing, and he wanted to know who's singing what. So we were in the college, and he sent word for us. So a small group of us, about 20 of us, rushed to the mandir. And this was in the afternoon, 3 o'clock. We rushed to the mandir, and he was waiting for us. And as soon as he came and sat, he said, "Oh, y'all have come. Oh, by the way, did y'all have anything to eat?" We said, "No, Swami. We just came from college." "No, nothing to eat." "You, Papa." Then he said, "Let me see what's in the kitchen." He went inside, he dug out mixture, and he bought plates. We call it mixture, sorry, but there is something like a fried snack, if you will. And then he himself serves it to everyone. And he eat little. And then he made sure there was a flask of tea made while he was giving discourse, and he made sure we all had tea. And this was like, "I'll go for darshan and come, you all finish eating," like that. But then he came back after darshan, and then we were still sitting. He said, "Oh, everything done, good. No sweet for you." Then he calls one boy, and he says, "Show me your hand." He showed like this. Not only for you, for everyone, so show like this. And he put both his hands like this. And so he's sitting on the chair again, he pulls us both asleep. And this is all like happening so fast, spontaneously. When I say spontaneously, there is no element of showmanship in this. Now when we pick up an odd video somewhere here and then watch, it might seem like, "Oh, Baba performed something on the stage, people can see." But there's one small little fraction. There's a purpose and a reason why he's doing a yagna, that people can see it, everybody can see what's happening there. It's not meant to be any kind of showmanship at all. So these are all done spontaneously, or genuine, pure love. And so he has no desert. "Oh, my young boy is desert." Okay. So he pulls his sleeve, and then this boy is holding his palm like this, and he starts rubbing his palm. And we are all eager, what is Swami doing? We're used to this, what is this? So he starts doing like this, and bundi ladu it's called. It is made of, I'm very poor in kitchen. So it's some kind of a sweet dish filled with ghee and, So it started coming off from his hands, falling in pieces onto this boy's hand. And he's going on doing it until the boy gets a big meru, it forms a big triangle. And this boy, his hands are shivering. He says, "I know it's hot, I know it's hot. It was hot for me also." And his hand is full of ghee. It's full soaked with ghee. And it's hot, not boiling, I'm sorry. Very, very hot blood. He said, "Give it quickly to everybody." So all of us, of course, took a share. And it was very, very hot. And somebody gave him a kerchief, so he wiped his kerchief. He said, "Okay, now let's talk." And he went back to music and completely shifted. Never allowed us to savor that moment and say, "See how I do this." None of that. It was just like, it has to be done. Just like you comb your hair before you go out, or you just brush your teeth in the morning. You don't think twice. But a 2-year-old might look at you and say, "Oh, how do they do all this? This is a miracle. My parents are superhuman beings," they would think. It is exactly like that. He understood the laws of the universe, for which was not a miracle. And so, we saw hundreds of materializations, and that was my first experience. And then came the chance of watching Swami in and out. That's where my curiosity turned into admiration. Admiration turned into devotion. Devotion turned into love and surrender, if you will. And I'm still learning the art of surrender. But watching him live in that 2 little rooms, tiny rooms, and I've spoken about this many, many times. I never get tired of speaking about this because it's so important, y'all. Everybody hears forgive me for saying who the real Sai Baba was. I say this, but it's not the real Sai Baba, it's what I saw. I mean, it's like the 6 blind men who go to see the elephant, right? There's a story, little folk tale that's told to us as children. Each one feel one side of the elephant and say the elephant is a trunk. He feels the trunk and says the elephant is like a snake. Somebody feels the leg of the elephant, he says, "What is snake? It is a pillar." Somebody feels the tail, he has a different version of the snake. So this is one blind man's version, so bear with it. Bear with my limited ability to describe this magnificent personality of Sai. But this is what I saw. And this is what impressed me so much, that the intensity of his life was so powerful inside. It was a stone wall, completely stone, like you have in your basements, painted no pictures on the wall, 2 little bulbs, 1 little fan, and 1 sofa, a straight back sofa for him to sit. And 1 dustbin on one side, and little trash can where you can read letters and throw. On this side there are trays and letters kept where he can keep reading and put it. His only pastime was reading letters that he picks up from people. And that was all it was. There was nothing else. There was no other chairs in the room. When people come, they'll all stand. And there was a sense of a beauty to this, but yet there was a sense of sadness. And what was that? Nobody would speak to Swami unless he spoke to them. Nobody. So even you say VIPs go and all, they'll all stand reverentially and he'll be reading. And he'll say, what happened today? Then he will speak. If Swami gives him the cue, he will speak. If there's another person there next to him, he will wait for his turn. He wants to try to raise his hand, you can't do that to Swami. And for those of us who are there, we were the servant boys, cleaning the room, mopping the room, cleaning his bathroom, make sure his towel is ready and his seat is clean upstairs and downstairs interview rooms are clean. So we were the errand boys. Swami would call us to run errands in the ashram here and there. And there were many, many stories around that as well. But what is the sad part? The reverential part was nobody spoke to him. It wasn't, nobody would take it for granted that he was close to Baba, he could ask something. Never. I mean, because in a flick of an instant, he would throw you off from that place where you are. He was completely in control of his mission throughout, completely in control. The sad part, what I felt was, as a young boy watching this master, I felt, so he has no one to call his friend, he has no one to sit back and say, okay, I'm done with my day's job of giving darshan, let's chill and relax and discuss something else or watch TV or, I felt he doesn't have anyone to call him his own, to sit and talk, chat. So, in fact, an elderly devotee later on explained to me, that's why he loves young boys, because young boys, students, when he spends time with y'all, he's teaching y'all, but for him it's relaxation for him. He encourages you doing drama, this and that. That is our ways of thinking how he would relax, because that's a logical mind. But for me, even that was not enough, because that also he's teaching there. He's up in the chair, we are down. So where is his private space? Zero private space that he had, literally, where he could be just what we would think, himself. This himself was what we saw outside. Being divine was himself. And somebody who had no vitamin D at all, literally, except for that 5-10 minutes of darshan that he gave, and even in the later days, he put the shed everywhere. So, because for devotees, he would say, let them not sit in the sun. No fresh air, hardly any, because there are wooden panels in the windows. Out of the 4 panels, 3 are closed and only one small wooden panel is open. And there's thick mosquito net out there. So there's hardly any breeze coming in. And your room is 10 feet by 10 feet in your living room, and your bedroom is about 10 feet by 8 feet or 9 feet, something like that. Really, really small. And your bathroom is barely 3 feet by 4 feet, where you can just stand and have a shower with no exhaust fan, no windows, nothing. You look at it and you're like, how? You can spend a weekend like that, maybe, on a boot camp, spirituality boot camp. You might say, let's rough it out and do it. For a week, maybe. But doing it day in and day out, 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 year, 2 years, for decades at a time. From the time his mandir was ready, till the time he broke his hip and he was transferred to a bigger home, but unfortunately he was in wheelchair by then. So he never really got to enjoy the luxuries of a home, if you will. And to me as a young boy, watching that was what immediately drew my attention. How can somebody be so serious about his mission? And I began to understand and respect him for that. And I knew that every single boy there began to respect Swami for that. And that's how he was able to get that discipline out from us. He didn't impose discipline upon us. He invoked the discipline from within us by setting an example. Because if he was doing something else and we were asked to do something else, then somebody has to impose this discipline. But when we knew he was who he was, then automatically we felt, oh my gosh, how could I do this when he is doing this? And therefore, you're getting up early at 5 o'clock seemed late because he was getting up at 3:30 in the morning because he has to shower and hair has to dry, he has to use a hair dryer, it is hard. Everything will be worked in a small flashlight because he wouldn't put on the room lights. He said devotees will know Sai Baba's awake, they will start running around, they'll be indisciplined in the ashram. So in his own rooms, he lived like a prisoner, for lack of any other word. And yet, there was no remorse in his face. There was no sadness in his face. There was no frustration in his words or in actions. Something you can expect of somebody living like that, and all the time you come out, you're counseling people, reading their letters, and then you listen to bhajan, daya karo, kripa karo. Everywhere it is like people want to get from me. I want to break, I want to go out. That was not there with him. And we as young boys were waiting to get out and get some fresh air, run around a little bit, get the steam out of our system, because in Swami's presence, and oh my gosh, I'll end in a little bit. In Swami's presence, it's mindfulness to the extreme. Believe it or not, when there is silence, it's really, when a pin drop silence is really pin drop silence. If a pin falls, you will hear, and I'm not kidding. So you have to watch how you sit, how you stand, and even washing vessels, you have to do it very carefully, because you don't want to disturb his sense of aloneness. You don't want to disturb that. Nobody would dare disturb that. That's why they wouldn't speak to Swami unless he spoke to them. So, having stayed, when you stay there from morning 4:30 or 5 in the morning till about 9 or 10 in the night, like that, continuously quiet and all the time, very, very careful. If you're sweeping, mopping, you can't make noise. You can't. It has to be extremely quietly done. And so when you want to come out, you want to see a steam, you let out some steam. Then that's when I used to think, how does Swami do it? How does he manage that? Day in and day out, completely being himself. And that's when I began to understand that he is getting his energy from a source that is very, very different from what I think energy comes from. And the more I understand yoga today, the more I practice as my spiritual discipline, the more I have my own experiences and advancement in the practice, I begin to understand that that source is so infinite in its capacity to give. And the more you tap into it, you don't, for strength, for vitality, for stamina, for energy, for enthusiasm, for anything and everything, it comes from that source. And he had that source within him. He had the Disneyland within him. He didn't need to go out for a break. He had the sun within him. And I want to end with this small thing. Beautiful that the fact that I said he has a sun within him reminded me. Just bear with me for 2 more minutes. And no, that's dangerous. Don't tell me I can go on. No, I respect your time as well. But let me finish this quoting this such a beautiful perspective that he gave. So we are sitting at Swami's feet, and one of the boys says, Swami, but in some context he says, Swami, but you are God, you can do this. And Swami said, what about you? He said, Swami, we are just Swami or students or something. And then Swami said, why do you say that? You are no different from me. So he and I were sitting, and we of course have listened to Swami say this before. So we just looked at him and said, okay, this is Swami just again telling us one of those things they're not able to understand. And then Swami asked him, you have 2 eyes? What is the difference? He said, actually, that's how he started. You're saying different. What is the difference between you and me? Chip, what is the difference? You have 2 eyes? I have 2 eyes. You have 2 hands? I have 2 hands. You have 2 legs? I have 2 legs. And he went on like this. You have 2 eyes. And then you walking, talking, reading, writing, sleeping, eating, you do all that. I also do. You can sing, I can also sing. Everything, what is the difference? And then we looked at him and said, yeah, really, there is no physical difference, but there's a difference somewhere. We weren't able to place the finger on where the difference is, and he helped us do that. And if there's anything you can take home, think of this tonight as you go to sleep. He said the difference is here, pointed to his eyes. The difference is here. Chupalomdi, he said. Chupa means perspective. The difference lies in perception. The way you look at things, the way I look at things. That difference lies in perception. And then he went to explain. He said, you think you are a small little atom in this Brahmandam, in this cosmos, that you are a little atom in this universe. I think the universe is an atom within me. The universe is an atom within me. That is the only difference. He made it very simple. Change your perception. You can also do everything I do. And that is what he wanted us to cultivate. The perception, the belief, the experience that this whole universe exists in my consciousness. And just like when I go to sleep, the universe gets absorbed in me, and so too with death. In the highest realization, I begin to understand that I am the only one, and you are the only one. That's a beauty. Purnamada, Purnam Idam, Purna, Purnam Udachyate. You're complete, I am complete. From the complete comes out the complete. And that is in the secret of birth itself. A child comes out from the mother, the child is not incomplete. The child is complete, separate, individual. And that's all of us. We have all come from this divine source. That is why we worship the divine energy as a divine mother, because mother gives birth, the creation is given birth. She's given birth to creation. So we understand the cosmic intelligence as a divine mother. And so as we come out of the divine mother, we have all the qualities of us in us. We have every aspect of the divinity within us. We choose not to believe. And an avatar comes to remind us, you are also God. And the day we begin to understand that, we will share slowly and slowly and slowly. We begin to draw that divine perception he had, that this universe is contained within me. Until that, we'll keep coming back again and again. I would like to end this talk with my favorite poem of Baba that he gave us. It's more of a chant, more of a prayer. You have probably heard it, there are bhajans sung on this. And that is to me the greatest teaching of Baba, that we are all the same divine principle. And it goes like this. I am God. I am God. I am not different from God. I am Akhanda Parabrahman, the indivisible, absolute, supreme. I am Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. Grief and anxiety can never affect me. I am ever content. Fear cannot enter me. I am God, I am God, I am not different from God. Sad.
If we can ask a few questions.
Sure.
Anybody has any questions? Yes.
Dr. Iyer, you had mentioned that in Swami's Divine Presence Baba used to say some mind-boggling things, and you would wonder what it is, and it used to come to pass. Can you share some of those instances?
Well, for instance, when we were, college had just started, and Baba would, the college was not ready, the building was not ready, the hostel was not ready. We were living in the ashram in little sheds and dorms where we were packed in, and then we were sleeping in the mandir, and things had just started to move in the college. And we had, the classes were held in a small little school. The school was made up, it was a makeshift classes made available at a school, and that's where it started, in a very unassuming manner. And then Swami turned around and said, I'm going to make this a university. So for those of us who were there, we said, okay, how is this even possible? It's going to take years of this. When we think of something to grow, we say, oh, that'll take time. You know, like we say, we got realization, oh yeah, that'll happen someday. And we push it out. So we could never comprehend even what he was saying. In fact, and that was one of those declarations, if you will. And I remember sitting at Swami Street once, and as he was talking, he was asking somebody, how does a college become a university? And they said, Swami, you need X, Y, Z, you need electron microscopes and biology labs, you need laser technology and physics departments, you need this and that, and you need X number of students, you need so many colleges, you need to be in existence for so many years. And it listed all the things which, again, it was like this list of things that you think need to be accomplished. He said, okay, once you have all that, then what happens? Then they said, then a University Grants Commission, Swami will come, and that is from 25 universities or 27 universities. There are vice chancellors from the top universities in India. They would come as a commission. They will inspect you completely based on all this, and then they would decide to grant you the status. And Baba said, oh, okay, then call them. Call them. These VIPs were standing. They thought Swami didn't understand. I was sitting at Swami's feet, pressing his feet, and I thought Swami didn't understand what they just said. And so they cleared their throat very reverentially, repeated again, Swami, but what about the laser labs and all those things that the college is not even ready. He said, I know, just call them. Make arrangements for them to come this November. That is how when he says something, he also works towards it. Those people came. It's the same thing. And then, of course, we got the university granted. The status was granted without any of this being available. And there was another instance where it was the same thing with the hospital. He comes on the stage and he declares next year this will be the big hospital, free education, free medicals will be done. And there was no money in the trust. There was no way. I was handling the trust. My father was handling the trust money, and we know as accountants there, we knew there was not enough money we were just managing to pay everybody their salaries, and institution was fully run by then in full swing. We had MBA department and this and that. So where is the money for this grand vision of Baba? Okay. But 1 year later it was there. The hospital was there. The top physicians from Delhi, from all over India came, and they started performing 7 open heart surgeries a day. My wife Maya was working there, and she can recount so many miracles that happened. So there are many of such mind-boggling things he would say, and we would not understand, and then they would all come true. And when we were there, he would say, one day it won't be easy for you to even come close to me, and come close and touch my feet. Many of these things we didn't understand. See, many of these things are, and as a crowd increased towards the end, it was very difficult to get access to Swami. And he made himself also inaccessible because it was so, and Swami said once, I distinctly remember, I don't know if he was playing with us or what, he said, my feet also won't touch the ground. And it was true, his feet was on the wheelchair. After a while, he never touched the ground. We don't know what he meant, but everything that he said, everything that he has said has always come true. And in my own life, everything that he has said has come true. Things which I knew, which I didn't know. A month before my mother passed away in 2013, she was visiting us when this happened. She was just chatting and she said, Swami had once told you, she was telling me that, wherever you go, don't stop talking about Swami, you can't continue doing that and all that. I said, okay, but why are you suddenly advising me? I'm doing it for so many years. Say, yes, I'm just telling you, don't stop it at all. And then she said, Swami once told your father that you should go to States. I said, wait a minute, why are you telling me now, after I've been in the States for 13 years, now you're telling me this? When did this happen? He said, I don't know, I just remembered now my father when we did the Bhajagovindam drama and we were going around. And so Swami was so happy with the play, he took us around as a group to different parts of India, Bangalore, Chennai, Bombay, all these places to perform this bit. And then my father was in one of these places. He was talking to Dr. Goldstein was there, my father was there, they were all sitting, and then he told my father, you want, I can send your son to to USA. I can send to USA because he's a good actor, he can go there and do good acting. My father said, Baba, he's your child, do whatever you want. And it never, I didn't know about this dialogue at all. Apparently my father told my mother. But years later, I'm in the US, and perhaps playing my role as an actor, playing my role as his instrument. There are many things like that. There's so many, which when I say mind-boggling, it's simply, we can't put our mind around what he's trying to say, what he's trying to predict about the future. But then they always came to pass. They always came to pass. He also said things about there's life in every dimension, in every world. There's so many worlds and so many dimensions. There is life. But then there is the most important and the most precious among all the lives is the human mind. And that he never hesitated in echoing the Vedanta. Just like, in science we say if there's aliens out there, maybe they're he said, even if there are lives in other planets beyond the sun and inside the sun and all of those dimensions, they are not as precious as the human birth. The human birth is the only one that you have the opportunity to realize the complete universal principle that exists within you. So because we we have the necessary, the chakras in the body and the spine to experience that while living. So he would say such things about other dimensions, other worlds, other beings. He would talk about, and then he would also say, when I go for darshan, you all don't know, you all are like frogs around me, like a lotus, around the lotus, like frogs, you all are just here. But you don't know how many saints and sages and yogis come for my darshan. Many of you don't even see them, you are blind. And so whenever I used to come give darshan, my eyes will be looking at devotees, not at Baba. Because I'm looking at who's the yogi there, can I trace it, learn something from them. And I did, I learned a lot of yoga from some of these one or two great masters. I'm writing about them, so someday hopefully with Baba's grace and the book is ready, we'll share. They were amazing people. I think they were very, very highly realized souls who would come. They would just be commoners, sit at the back. They would not crave for running, trust in the line or handing letters. They are just satisfied with the darshan. And some of these masters who told me, they said, you don't understand, you don't understand, I don't understand. Nobody can understand the energy of Sai. He's come not for you and me, not for this generation, for hundreds of generations from now. He's sowing the seeds and going. It's not, don't worry about what he said, enjoy the present, don't question, just be part of it in whatever way you can, just be part of it. So, I don't know if I did justice, but, and there were many other things also, but I can't recollect any as of now, but it was almost everything that he said comes true. Everything that he said comes true. Any other question? All right. Thank you all for your patience.